Hi, I'm Ven. Welcome to my book corner. We're continuing with Don't Die July today, and we're talking about this month's new release that I'm covering, Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle. This is Chuck Tingle's second full-length horror novel, following up from the excellent Camp Damascus, which I read last year and made my top 10 reads of the year. This might be my favourite read of the year so far. So this released in the US on the 9th of July. It releases in the UK on the 16th. I managed to get hold of my copy early because Waterstones shipped it before its release date. So that's fun. This comes in at 304 pages long. This is a horror story. As always, we shall talk about the story itself, the characters, the world building, and the presentation before I go into my final thoughts at the end of the video. Also, something that is new to the channel that I'm going to be doing is for a number of my review titles, I will be doing first chapter reads a few days after reviews go out, so you can get a better idea of how the writing is and if this potentially is something for you. Now, with all that said, let's just jump into the story. Okay, so I really like what this book is going for, because this really does skewer the film industry in particular and the TV industry as well, but I would argue creative media in general, and that starts right off the bat with the title of this book. Bury Your Gaze is a reference to a practice that is still unfortunately quite prevalent in film and TV. You also see it in other creative media as well. Video games is especially egregious for this one, where you include a certain character for the sake of representation, so you can say that we are representing all groups, to then kill them off early on in the story, or give them an unhappy ending. And that is the first thing that this book is referencing, the fact that that is still very much an ongoing problem in multiple industries. Although it is getting better, it is still not good. On top of that, this also takes an unflinching look at a couple of trends that we're starting to see develop more and more as well, especially within film and TV, and that is the use of CGI, first off, to create ghoulish representations of past actors who have passed away, and then AI to power their performance. And whilst we're only seeing the early stages on this, there was a recent example of a Marilyn Monroe sort of AI chatbot and CGI likeness that was created in the last few months. But we are seeing this almost ghoulification of actors that have sadly passed away being transported into more modern media. And the threat here is the fact that AI could potentially be used to in some way replicate some of those behaviours, and that then links into things like your image rights, and does an actor have a right to their own likeness, or is that owned by the studio? Or does the studio just own the character's likeness for a certain character? Interesting questions that are not particularly being well represented right now. But something worth mentioning, especially with the SAG-AFTRA strikes last year, where AI was such a big driving force behind the reasons for those strikes, and some of the outcomes after that were not great from the union's point of view, some of the concessions that they made. But definitely a warning about that. And the other thing that this talks about is corporation and corporate greed. This does go into the idea of algorithms driving profitability, because business is here to make money, and how that can zero in on quite a homogenized product and sort of shun away other creative ideas. Now, for the story itself, we're following Misha, who is a kind of disenfranchised scriptwriter within Hollywood. Misha writes queer-coded characters, by and large in some form of horror environment, and is determined to give these characters some fair, decent representation, to give them the happy ending that they don't get in other forms, in other TV shows or films. And he's, at the beginning of the book, called in to the studio executives to be told that the algorithm has said that the happy ending is not as profitable as an unhappy one. And basically is told by the big executive that he has got to rewrite the ending of his series that he's doing at the moment ready for the next season. If he does not choose to do this, then it is implied that he will be removed from the project and sued for breach of contract. Misha, being quite principled on this, for reasons we'll get into when we talk about characters in a bit, refuses, walks out, and he sees a very well-known film producer, writer, who has been in the industry decades, inappropriately touch a female aide, goes to confront them, and what I would only term as an Acme death occurs. Obviously shaken by this, takes some time away, still struggling with the idea of having to either give up his plans for his character or keep his job and end up in really, really, really expensive litigation, which we know how that works when big studios have all the money. And then some strange things start to occur as Misha starts to see characters from his shows that he's written over the years appearing, acting in almost perfect, what appears to be initially at least, as cosplay. And over the course of the book, it becomes clear that there's something slightly different about these characters. And Misha starts to understand that there's something else going on behind the workings of the studio itself. And there's something more to these people that are following him around. And it adds a really good layer of tension. I absolutely love the premise of this. For those of you that don't know, I am quite politically inclined and I am quite anti-corporation. And I do have major concerns about AI and CGI working in tandem as well. So this ticks a lot of boxes for me. And this is certainly a very timely novel that captures the horror element really well of where this could go. So none of that would work if the main character point of view of this wasn't engaging. Unfortunately, Misha is a really engaging character to read, especially due to their character motivations. They are somebody who is, in many, many ways, a film and TV nerd. Self-explicit, self-explained. They are somebody who is obsessed with storytelling, and that comes into part multiple times throughout the story. It does play into some of the key scenes within the book, but not just that. Their reasons for writing LGBTQIA plus characters is kind of to write themselves a happy ending. They're trying to write characters with a happy ending that he kind of wants, to be open and proud and to be validated in many regards. Because as a character, Misha is, whilst not quite closeted, some people do know about his sexuality, it isn't completely open. He is in a relationship with Zeke, who is their bisexual boyfriend, and it is well known in the social circles that he travels in now in LA, but never confirmed to the press. So you have levels of press speculation going on there about the characters that he writes, and therefore leading to the speculation about his sexuality, something that he has never discussed in the press. Also back home in Montana, never out there to family or friends, at least not openly at any rate, because of some issues that happened in childhood. And then that then links in again to inspiration, because during his childhood, he began to see certain subtext in TV shows that he was watching, be that for relationship status in general. So the one that's mentioned in here that comes to mind is the X-Files, the whole Mulder and Scully, the implicit suggestion of relationship rather than the explicit nature that we kind of got confirmed later on in the movies. But also in terms of the implicit sexuality of characters as well in other media. And this is something, looking back, we can clearly see throughout media representation that there are queer-coded characters that could not say that they were queer outright because of either social trends at the time or social conveniences, or indeed it wasn't legal. So the determination to show true representation on screen and not just have token representation is a really interesting driving force, coupled with the fact somebody that is obsessed with storytelling and has quite a strong moral background is really well handled. And you have an interesting sort of butting of heads here between the this is what I want to do, this is my moral stance, to well, I still need to eat. And that bounces quite well quite early on in here, and you have this sort of dilemma going on of, well, this is my dream job, but do I compromise my values to keep my dream job? fascinating thing which many people do have to go through in their life. On top of that, you have a number of other things going on as well. So there's various moments in here where, as the story progresses, it feels like his psyche is beginning to sort of disintegrate a little bit after, obviously, first of all, having to deal with the difficult meeting and being told to compromise their morals at the start of the book, to very quickly seeing a horrific death within feet of them, to then having a stalker incident, with that then becoming almost a media storm with accusations of these stalker incidents being points of viral marketing to drive awareness of their new project that's coming out that they've been nominated for an Academy Award for. And you have this disintegration of character into almost paranoia, which does link in really, really well to the world building, which we'll get onto in a moment. In terms of side characters, there isn't a huge amount of time spent with many of the side characters in here. The main three that I'm going to mention, the first one is Zeke, who is very much the out and proud bisexual boyfriend. Very confident, very loving, very analytical in their nature, does help to solve a number of the riddles and the clues that are going on, and an absolutely supportive character. But there is some strain on the relationship due to the fact that Misha is not out to his family and is not aware of his partner situation. Although, again, this isn't in a pressurized thing. This is very much a, it's okay, I understand, it's a difficult thing to talk about. So you have that support network dropping down. And you also have Tara, who is what I call the tech support character, who is asexual, continuing the theme of representation in here, and is very much, it almost feels like a conspiracy theorist in many ways. Very much a, don't turn your phone on around company servers, it will steal all your data and copy it all and steal all your ideas sort of level of stuff. And that does also play into the overarching story and themes of the book, and it all meshes together really, really well. And again, whereas Misha is very much the almost socially awkward, introverted character, Tara is a lot more loud and friendly and bubbly, and everybody automatically loves them straight away. So you have this triumvirate who really do work well as a group together when they're on the page, especially when it hits the point where Misha's friends start to become threatened by what's going on as well, and you have that sense of responsibility dragging his character down further. The final character I want to mention is the main executive that we meet in here. I think he's called Jack, and it's very much a caricature of what I would call the tech bro sort of character of the algorithm's always right, and it's not on me, it's on the people above me. I'm on your side, really, but you really need to do this. The thinly veiled threats sort of situation, but I'm still your best mate. I'm really on your side, but it's out of my hands kind of caricature of a character that does work really well as an antagonist early on until you realise there is an escalation of stakes going on here as well. So overall, I really love the characterization in this one. I think it blends so well with the thematic nature of the horror that's going on as well. And it also then links into the world building. The world building links into the characters and the themes to make this a complete package. What do I mean by this? Well, everything that's going on within the world, the situations, marketing, the nature of the beast that is the film and TV industry, all links back into the themes and then regurgitates itself to give characters meaning and drive. You have the idea of viral marketing that is really, really prevalent in here. You have the themes of AI and CGI and how protective companies are of their own technology when it gives them the littlest bit of an edge. You also have the idea of non-disclosure agreements and proprietary rights as well, and image rights as well, which is a really important thing right now. The idea of you have a contract with us, so we own your likeness, your voice, your performance, everything about that belongs to us now. And potentially the legal grey area that encapsulates. You then add in the fact that it's looking at LA as this big glitzy area with the seedy underside, and it does give a bit of a commentary on some of the historical difficulties that have been very well documented with things like the Me Too movement over the last decade, amongst other things as well. and the nod towards the fact there are still a number of problematic actors. Sorry, that's the wrong term. People, I should say, still operating in the film industry today. Final point for this is obviously the presentation. I really like the fact that Chuck Tingle can somehow write a really fast-paced novel, which I think this is pretty fast-paced, that somehow still manages to have a gradual incline of tension build-up. And I'm not quite sure how that works or why it works, but it just does. Tingle has an amazing ability to thread the needle for things to pay off later on. There's levels here of things that are mentioned really early on in the story that feel like throwaway moments, largely linked to the thematic nature of things that are happening in the title, but also beyond that, to then come back at the end of the book to act as either a critique of what's gone on or a solution for what is happening that is exquisitely well done. And it is a good job of foreshadowing some of the twists and turns in such a way that, first of all, when they happen, they feel like they make sense. My biggest issue when you have a mystery box sort of element is when you get the reveal and it doesn't make sense to the clues you've been given. This does a good job of misdirecting you on a number of those clues, but when you get the revelation, it makes so much sense. I also like the fact that this does link back and reference Camp Damascus as well, suggesting that we're in a, for want of a better word, an expanded universe here. Which I like, which is weird, because that's one of the biggest criticism of current creative process in Hollywood is the expanded universe thing. But this is also a really easy read. I read this in 2 sittings, and that's only because I was in work at daft o'clock in the morning and had to put the book down. This is the easiest horror novel I have read since both Camp Damascus and You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight by Kyle Byron. And it's an amazing writing style that just fetches everything together. Now, is it the most descriptive writing style in the world? No. But it captures the character moments exceptionally well. And where the descriptions do need to come in for some of the horror elements, it does such a good job of hitting those graphic moments without going into too much detail like you do with, say, for example, your extreme horror novels. But also, again, linking it into the personal moments, which I think Chuck Tingle has an amazing gift for, and I can't speak highly enough of the writing of this. Okay, so, in case it's not obvious, and it should be, this is amazing as far as I'm concerned. I think this might be my favourite read of the year so far. It's certainly my favourite new release of the year so far by a country mile, and I've had some really good ones, Butcher in the Forest, which I'll link above, being one of those. But there's just so much heart in this, and this all comes down to the philosophy of Chuck Tingle themselves. The importance of love. Love is real. And the idea of being true to who you are comes through all Tingle's works, be that their horror works or their, as I term it, wholesome absurdist erotica. And it really does filter all the way through this title. But on top of that, it does have some very timely commentary on some of the things going on in society now, be it rampant commercialism, business abuse, the current challenges around AI in creative industries, the moral implications of CGI in recreation of things. This does an amazing job of taking an unflinching look at the dangers of what they could possess, and then takes it to its extreme in some cases as well. Add into the fact you then have the really strong moral beats from Misha in particular, and what you have for me personally is a really engaging, easy to read novel. This took me 2 sittings to read, and that was only because I had to sleep because I was in work at 5 a.m. the next day. I wanted to finish this in 1 sitting. This was just absolutely amazing. This gets 5 stars from me. It will be going straight into my top tier on my tier ranking list. I'm so glad I managed to get hold of this one early, but that is Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle. Have you read this? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments below. If you've got to the end of this video and you've enjoyed it, please consider a like and a subscribe if you haven't already. Everything helps the channel out. I will catch you all very soon.